Are you a soothing presence for your kids? According to today's guest, a soothing presence is someone who is okay when you are not okay. Usually, these are specific people. You can probably know who your person is. Who will be okay when you are not okay? As parents, we want to be a soothing presence for our children. Fortunately, it is simply a skill to learn. So if you did not have that from your parents growing up, you can learn it now. Our natural instincts are to want to make our kids feel better, quickly. When you learn to be a soothing presence, you allow your child to experience and express what is happening in their words without you getting triggered by it. Today's guest beautifully explains how this happens in plain language. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned, because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Welcome back to the Language of Play. I am glad you're here. For those of you signing in on the day this episode is released, Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas, whatever your culture says. I want to start off by once again thanking our sponsor, Lightning Admin VA. Being a mom and a business owner means you're wearing all the hats. And it's exhausting. Cindy at lightningadminva.com can take some of that weight off your shoulders. She handles the admin work so you can show up for your family without letting your business fall behind. At the holidays, you have a particular opportunity to notice the struggles that your kids have with their speech and language development. It shows because now they're with people that they don't interact with on a daily basis. That tends to highlight how well they are understood and how well they understand others. If you are noticing some struggle that you wish wasn't there and you want to know how to help your kiddo, contact me at hello@thelanguageofplay.com and we can have a conversation. My email is in the show notes, and also in the show notes is a booking link if you would prefer to schedule yourself a Zoom meeting where we can meet. When I recorded this episode with Dr. David Marcus, I had a hoarse voice. Hopefully it's not a distraction for you, and you enjoy this episode just the same. Dr. Marcus is a highly respected figure in clinical psychology, known for his expertise in improving the lives of individuals and families. He specializes in families under stress. Dr. Marcus advises parents on how to provide soothing, safe environment for their children and how parents can help children in developing an emotional language. Dr. Marcus is the author of the forthcoming book, Parent RX, Prescriptive Wisdom, Tips and Strategies for Communication with Your Child. Dr. Marcus, thank you so much for joining me today on the language of play. And by that bio, it is very apparent how we are an easy match to have you on this show. So thank you for coming to talk with us.
Oh, that's fine. I saw that as well. The language of play is something that I've studied and been using for so long, how to develop it. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Play is so important. So tell us how you actually got
Mhm.
into the idea of understanding play is pivotal. Play is a cornerstone. How did you get into that understanding?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because there's a purpose to play.
Hmm.
There was a man named Donald Winnicott back in the 50s and 60s who did a lot of lectures on the radio. He's British. He was the head of the British School of, get this, child psychoanalysis. Now, I can't picture a child laying on a couch and getting psychoanalysis, but back then that was what it was called. And he had some fascinating insights into children, okay, in regards to uh, what is the purpose of it. And then there's a book I'll by him called Playing in Reality. If if you're people want to read it or you would like to look it up yourself.
I'm going to
And
write it
what
down.
he's yeah, okay. And what he described is the purpose of play is a child's way of approaching reality through the buffer of fantasy.
Mm.
Okay. When you think about what children do when they play at being adults. They play mommy, they play daddy, fireman, whatever it might be. And of course, they couldn't handle the rigors of adult life, but they can approach it through the buffer of fantasy. All right.
What a
And so
beautiful way to
play,
describe that.
well, it shows the purpose of it. Children need to be allowed what Donald Winnicott called the play space. Okay. It's got to be a safe place where the child can just go with their imagination and have nothing impinge upon that space. In fact, he talks about being alone in the presence of others. And again, this man was fascinating to me because I hadn't thought of these things myself. And what he was talking about is you don't really need to be interacting with a child to make it safe for them to use their imagination and play. And the example he uses, like a little child is sitting there on the floor just playing by himself, and mom's in the chair, and the phone rings in the other room. And mom goes up to the other room to get the phone, and all of a sudden the child says, "Mom, where are you? Where are you, Mom?" All the child needed was the presence of the parent. And from that came my own ideas of what I call the soothing presence. Okay. Now, let me just tell you what that is because it really applies here as
Mhm.
far as making it safe for the child to play, etc. I use the term soothing presence rather than a soothing person. And the reason I do that is because it takes a lot more than just being a soothing person to be a soothing presence. What I mean by that, you have to create a soothing environment. And oftentimes there are so many impingements on that environment that it takes you away from being a soothing presence.
Mm.
Job stress, family stress, whatever it might be, right? You had a bad taco at lunch. I mean, there could be a lot of different things. And so parents need to be aware of trying to create this safe haven, this safe place by being a soothing presence. And how to do that, how to be a soothing presence varies according to age. Okay, you soothe an infant by holding them and cooing to them.
Mhm.
When they get a little older, you're introducing language. What's amazing is that how people need to be soothed is also depending on the stress that they're under at the time. For instance, this was a true story. When I was 16, I went to a funeral of a friend's sister who got killed in a car wreck. And the girl was like 16 years old. Yeah, there's no preparation for the death of somebody that young. It was in a car accident. So I went to the funeral and I was overwhelmed by the emotions. And there you saw people, adults, just curled up almost in fetal position, crying in somebody's lap.
Mm.
And later, as got into being a psychologist, I realized they had regressed back to needing to be soothed as an infant. So there's quite a lot to this soothing presence that I'm talking about. What the simplest definition is: a soothing presence is somebody who is okay when you're not okay.
Ah,
If
how nice.
if if you think about the people that you turn to when you're upset or have something heavy on your heart, say, there's certain people we turn to. It could be spouses, it could be friends, it could be other family members, but they're usually specific people. And the reason that we turn to them is because they are okay when we're not. So we can talk to them and sort of borrow their okayness and begin to get a little what I call safe emotional distance from what's really bothering us so we can look at it ourselves. If you think about it as an adult, if you turn to somebody, you say, you got, this is what's going on. And if they jump in too soon and say, oh, I know just how you're feeling, and this is what you should do. Well, if they were a good friend, you might just say, hear me out. If
Mm.
it's not a good friend, you'd say thank you and go find a good friend. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the difference here is children won't, you can't expect a 5, 6, 7-year-old to turn to mom or dad and say, will you just be quiet and listen to me?
Right.
They'll just go, uh-huh.
Right.
And the parent will do things that are mistakes, to tell you the truth. We can get into that as far as trying to make their child feel better.
Mm.
And the child shuts up because there's no place else to go because the parents are talking. And the parent says, okay, we've talked about this. My child's fine now. Until 3 days later, when something similar happens, and they're just as upset. And I thought we talked about it. No, you didn't. You think you did.
Yeah. Because
The
we talked
ironic,
about it, but the child really didn't talk about it.
you got it. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And so, this is going to sound very, I don't know what would term be, extreme. Uh, that's not. Anyway, I would like to get, as a psychologist who treats families and children, I'd love to get rid of the term make feel better
Mm.
because it very, very rarely works, you know?
So, since that is always our parental motive is to make our kids feel better, and you're right,
Yeah,
we can't make them feel better, but we can distract them sometimes from the feelings that they have.
yeah.
What would you advise instead?
Okay. That's that's exactly where we're going, to tell you the truth. Um, make feel better. Let's describe how parents do this. You mentioned one, they'll I mentioned another. They'll cut in and say, this is what I went through, therefore this is what you should do. They're giving him the benefit of their experience, which is, fine, except you're not really giving the chance to the child to express themselves. You're cutting it off, to tell you the truth. All right. Making light of it is another way. Getting defensive if it's about the parent is another way. Getting angry for the same reason because it's about the parent or something. All right. Um, oh, yeah, trying to redirect them.
Yeah,
These are all ways that parents try to make their child feel better, but it doesn't address what's bothering the child.
right. It's a very natural thing to do because we don't want to see our kids feel badly. But you're
Of
right, they
course,
need to feel their feelings.
they not only they feel their feelings, they need to be able to express them.
Yeah, to accept them and express them.
Yes, exactly.
One of the things you talk about a lot is emotional language. This is something you and I have in common.
Ah, really?
Tell
How
me,
so?
yes. Well, because I think that it's really important for parents to build their own vocabulary of emotional language so that they can help the child identify words that go with the feelings that the child is experiencing as
Okay,
one area. But why don't you take it the way you see it?
sure. Okay. There's an assumption that parents make when they use their own emotional language with their child, and that is the child would express those emotions the same way that I would. We make the silent assumption that anger is anger, anxiety is anxiety, sadness is sadness. Even if you're right, even if they feel exactly what you're talking about, you're wrong because you haven't given them a chance to express it. So I talk to parents about the process of emptying out. Now, that's not exactly catharsis. I want to make that distinction. Purpose of emptying out. I talk about with parents the experience of being filled up. What do I mean by being filled up? The way I describe it is we all have an emotional space within us. And typically we pour into our chest like our heart, when we think about emotions, but it's in our head. And this emotional space, it's a psychological space, but it gets filled up with intense emotion, fear, anger, anxiety, frustration, whatever it might be. In fact, in little children, it could even be intense glee. They get this little tiny toy and, oh, I'm so happy. But they're filled up. Okay. Well, what I want to describe to you is what happens when we get filled up. Well, it's uncomfortable. We don't like it. It feels intense, feels like we're not in control of our emotions sometimes, which can be scary. And we know when we're filled up because we have phrases that describe it, like, I've had it up to here,
Mm-hmm.
or the straw that broke the camel's back. We know when we're filled up. So what do? As human beings, this is what we do. We focus inwardly on how we're feeling and try to deal with it. Now, we may get it off our chest, like we talked about, journal, go for a run, watch TV to distract ourselves. Hopefully, you don't kick the dog if you're mad. You see but we do something to address it. So what I'm getting at is this. So by definition, when we're filled up with intense emotion, we're focused inwardly. So by definition, then we're not focused outwardly on what people are saying to us.
Ah, yes, that makes sense.
The best example I can give you is the term of blinding rage. Have you ever heard that, Taylor? Blinding. That's pretty accurate. When somebody is so filled up with anger, they're almost completely blind to what people are saying to them. You can give the most logical, calm explanation about why they shouldn't feel the way they do. And what they pick up is that 5% of it that somehow supports their rage, or their tone of voice that somehow supports their rage, and they get angrier. The point is still, eventually, the person who's trying to be calm and logical throws up their hands and says, I can't talk to you. And here begins the walls between, partners or spouses, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a thing. Then it becomes a communication snafu. With children, it's a little different. The parents, well, of course, if the parent gets rageful or angry, the child gets scared. And they realize really quickly, I shouldn't take, I can't go there. This is really hard for parents who are divorced or are in high conflict because they love both their parents. But I had a really good time with daddy, upsets mommy. Children are exquisitely aware of how we feel. We can try to hide it, doesn't work. You can pick up an infant, and if your hands are tense, they cry. I mean, this is just the natural way of things. So children, they need their parents to be okay if they're going to be okay.
Mhm.
If their parents don't feel good about them for something they said or did, they take it personal. That hurts their self-esteem. They are very sensitized to how we feel and what we think about them. Of course, then they hit teenagers, become adolescents, and they don't give a darn about how we feel about that.
Oh, they do still. They very much do.
Well,
They just
okay.
express it differently.
Well, they may, but they're also, the other thing is they're so sensitized to not being wanting to be seen as a child that
Right.
if you talk in a certain way, they resent it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you got to that's a whole other thing. So anyway, this is what happens. So the obvious solution is, how do we empty this person out so they can even hear us, even hear what we have to say? Now, emptying out is a skill. Here's the bugaboo. This is where it's different than just catharsis. We have to empty out the other person or our child on three levels. Most superficial, easiest level is the logical level, which is the here and now. I use a simple example. You need to take out the garbage. Now, we have lots of words to describe that. It's necessary, it's your chore, it's getting smelly, whatever it might be. So that's easy. But the next deeper level is what I call the history level. This is the seventh time I've asked you to take out the garbage and you haven't done it. Now, obviously, the reaction is going to be much more intense, right? Take out the garbage. But if you were a stranger who did not know that history, you might turn to that first person and say, what's the big deal? So they didn't take out the garbage. Here's where the logic breaks down. The deepest level is what I call the tapped into level. The fact that you didn't take out the garbage after I asked you to do it 7 times means you don't listen to me. I really don't like when people don't listen to me. My mother didn't listen to me, and she was really always on my case about this, that. This one can go anywhere. A lot of the being filled up intensity comes from the history and the tapped into level. But most people try to stay on that here and now level, just trying to argue, come on, it's your job, and they never get to what's really going on. The here and now level is easy, and we got lots of words for that. When somebody's addressing the history level when they say things like, you always do this and you never do. Now they're addressing previous events. And of course, the tapped into level is when you do that, this is how I feel. But that means the other person's really listening and being a soothing presence. So it's safe enough to tell that person how you really feel. See how all this begins to tie together after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So being a soothing presence, being someone who's okay when other people are not, is quite a skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a skill, and there's things that can get in the way of it. I talk to couples, you got to be a soothing presence for one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not going to agree. We've been brought up differently. Our experiences are different. We may have different parenting styles. Now, what are we going to do? What I typically do when parents come to me, their child is showing symptoms of something, whatever it might be. And I make it a point to never see children without seeing their parents on a regular basis, because I realize the child is typically showing a symptom of the family. I tell parents this, look, I am not the agent of change here. You are. I'm temporary. I'll see your child once a week, once every couple of weeks. That's not going to make the difference. What's going to make the difference is I am going to access your children's emotional perceptions of themselves, of you, of their environment, which is another skill that we can talk about, but maybe not today. But once I get it, I share that with the parents. This is how your child is filtering what you say to them.
Their filter that comes with their life experience and their prior knowledge and their 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 10-year-old understanding of the world.
We talk about a common emotional language. That's something that I've really sought to expose to parents. What do I mean by that? Well, again, parents make the assumption that their feeling words have the same meaning to the child as it does to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a silent assumption, but it's wrong. So what I try to do is get the child, the typical play therapy things, like pictures and stories and things like that. But I've also come up with another way, which I'll tell you about in a second. Express a word, and then I'll say, okay, give me another word for it. I've come up with some great ones. These kids are great.
Yeah, it's
One
a
of the
great
best ones.
vocabulary expander right there.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
you're using their words, not
Yes.
yours. I've gotten some, oh, that makes me volcano mad, Dr. Marcus. And with the same boy, I said, well, what makes you just a little angry? Well, when my mom makes me eat my peas. So from then on, when we talked about anything that made him angry, was that volcano mad or eat your peas mad? And he loved it. I mean, because I was at his terms, on his terms. All right.
It's very validating,
Uh,
isn't it?
yeah. With little children, I'll use hand motions, to make you this man, this man, this man. These kids, I don't know, I couldn't do it, but they can touch their hands behind their back. I think it would break our scapula if we tried to do no. Right? Universal man, whole country mad. I mean, I've gotten some wonderful ones, and I've come up with a game to even make that easier. You know, I'll talk to the parents and find out what seems to make the child angry. Da da da. And I've come up with a game called Mad Ball, and I've shared this with other therapists. It's very simple. You get a soft ball, but not too soft. It has to make a noise when it hits something.
Okay.
No. Okay. What I came up with one of those toy soccer balls that have a vinyl coating but spongy on the inside. And I'll tell you why. The game is this. Tell me something that makes you really mad. And then you can take this ball and throw it as hard as you want into my wall. Now, little boys love this. Okay. They always want to show you how strong they are. But even little girls like it, you know?
Yeah.
They'll tell me something and then I'll do it. But what I choose is something that his parents told me about him. Oh, I get really mad when my mom used to, you know, send me to my room, wham, into the wall, you know. Me too, wham, into the wall. Can you give me another word for it? Yeah, it makes me, and so we expand the vocabulary and I start using that vocabulary. Yeah.
I love, love, love that you are using the situation that you already know is hard for the child. So your example this time was the child that was sent to the room and they have big emotions over being sent to the room. So you are
Mm-hmm.
taking the place. You're holding space for that particular experience and using it as if it's yourself. So you're holding all the weight of the experience and then the child simply has to agree and that climbs them up the ladder, so to speak, towards what you're actually trying to bring them to. I love that.
Frees them up and
Yeah.
it makes them trust me. You know, there's something called a merger experience. I'm experiencing what you experienced, but I'm using their language. This is so cool, Dr. Marcus, that you did it but it's in their realm. I'm not taking it into my realm. You see what I'm getting at?
Mhm.
It's their experiences. I'm just saying I did it too, but not in a way that takes over, not in a way where I'm lecturing them about what they should do about it.
You're just
You
opening
see?
up the can of worms so that they can play with the
Right.
worms.
So
Yeah.
they can get it from in here where it's intense
Yep.
out here where I can be a soothing presence.
Nice.
It all ties together. What I tell parents is, "Oh, I'm sharing these perceptions with you now. When you can share them with me and you can tell me what's going on, child, after, teaching them how to empty out, to be a soothing presence, all the things we've been talking about, then I know we're almost done. I
Nice.
tell them I'm temporary. The idea of coming to see me is to get rid of me.
I love that. Work yourself out of a job is exactly what we therapists want to do.
Yes,
And
you
it's a
got it.
job
And
parent
and
of a it's the job of a parent too, isn't it?
mm-hmm,
Work
mm-hmm.
yourself out of that job.
This this is what I found out about my child this week, Dr. Marcus. And he said, "You sound just like Dr. Marcus."
Now
And parents say, "Oh,
I want to
go
make a
ahead."
bridge here. This is great information. It's a great foundation. The soothing presence, the emptying out. This is fabulous. I would like to make a bridge from this into emotional vocabulary. Like, how is it that we really teach our children how they can develop that vocabulary and how the parents do? How do they interact? Because I think that that's a really key part of understanding and growth
Mhm,
for our
mhm.
listeners.
Sure. Well, we've got a foundation in what we're talking about already,
Mm-hmm.
as far as using their own, coming up with a common emotional language.
Mm.
As the child gets older, then, their experience is going to be more and more out of the house, especially when they hit school age. The idea is to be enough of a soothing presence that the child feels safe enough to express things to you. This is you're correct that it's very important that they develop this emotional language.
Mm-hmm.
How? Again, use their own language. Let them come to you with what they're saying. Say, what other words can we use for that? Or you can take guesses. With younger children, sometimes I'll take guesses because they don't have the language yet. My guess is it was tough when your brother reset the Nintendo. Because I found out from the parents that he hit his younger brother because he reset the Nintendo after 4 levels or something like that. Notice the phrasing. Like I said, I get very hands on with parents. My guess is, and that it's tough. Well, I take it as a guess because if you say, "Oh, I'm sure it was like that," the child will is not going to gainsay you. They're little, you're big. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That kind of thing.
They always agree, and we think that they understand, and they don't.
No, no, because they just want you to be happy with them. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so you take it as a guess. And if they say, yeah, you say, how close was that guess? And with little kids, was it this close, this close, this close? Or, 1 to 10, but with older children, you know what I mean? How close was that? And if it's only a 3, I'll take another guess. But a guess is fine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The other word is tough. I like that word because it's tough. You just don't know how they describe it. Is it tough, frustrating? Is it tough, scary? Is it tough, making you mad? You see what I'm getting at? And
Mhm.
oftentimes parents misread that stuff and they assume that, oh, because it made me frustrated, it must make you frustrated. Well, the child was teased on the school bus, and he hit somebody. He said, "Oh, it made you angry, and that's why you hit this other kid." No, if you explored it, if you let the child come to you, you'd realize he was hurt because it was his best friend joining in with these other kids who were picking on him.
Yeah.
That's what he was really experiencing, but he never got a chance to tell you because
Yeah.
you assumed it was anger because it would make you angry.
Mhm.
You see, these are very sensitized things that you have to make parents aware of because it's just so. I mean, I don't blame them. They're just trying to make the child feel better. They want to do the right thing. I tell parents, you've got 2 children, you have 3 children, you have 1 child. I've seen probably about 400, and I've raised my own. So I got a leg up here. You know what I mean? So just hear me out, so you can hear what I'm saying. All I'm doing, and I do this on purpose, I'm just tweaking your parenting skills.
Mhm.
Because all parents come in when their child's having difficulties, afraid that Dr. Marcus is going to turn to them and say, "Oh my gosh, are you messing up your kid?" I mean, no, I'm not going to say that. We're just going to fine tune things. We're going to go on this exploration together and that engages them.
I like that because we really need to validate our parents. Any listeners to the Language of Play podcast is really a good parent. Anybody that comes to a podcast to listen how to parent better, we know you're already a good parent. But
Mm-hmm.
all of us need to learn something. All of us come to our adult
Yeah.
life with some baggage of our past. All of us have areas of weakness, our shadows from our glorious sides. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, to get somebody to help you find those specific areas is wonderful. When you talked about tough and you gave the example of scary or angry or hurt, excuse me, the thing I think about was embarrassed. That comes up often with our
Okay.
kiddos, that they feel embarrassed, but they don't necessarily know how or why. But we as grown-ups wouldn't be embarrassed by that particular thing, so we don't think of that
Uh,
first.
that's
And
true.
when we approach our kids and we start to use words like the many words you said, but also specific words like frustrated or embarrassed or agitated, whatever word we want to throw out, we're helping them
Sure.
to build a vocabulary that can help them know what they're feeling in vocabulary words. And I love when we do this very early as a normal way of talking about our
Are you
language.
right? Are you
So,
right?
yeah, so when your child is 2 and you stub your toe, you can talk about hurt, you can talk about anger, you can talk about I could just punch this pillow, whatever it is, because it all gives language and understanding for our
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm. That's true. They can pick up on those words. All I'm
Yes.
doing is fine tuning those words. I had an experience I'll share with you because I think your listeners might like this one because it really shows what you're talking about. 2 brothers I was seeing, 7 and 9, and I had just seen them, and I was just taking a few minutes to talk to their mom. We're talking a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden we hear a scuffle. Talking another couple of minutes, and then we hear a scream. Oh no! Okay, we both pop up, go to the waiting room, and There's the 9-year-old holding his arm like this in tears. There's the 7-year-old looking like, oh, I'm in big trouble now. Mom says to what happened? The 9-year-old says, he bit me. And he picks up his shirt and he's got teeth marks. I mean, the kid really beat him. But now I felt really bad for mom. Here she is in the child psychologist's office and her kids are biting one another. So she turned to the 7-year-old and said, I told you to use your words. And he looks at her in all innocence and says, I don't know how.
Yeah,
I said,
exactly.
that's where we need to go, Mom.
Yes.
That's where we need to go.
And all of this great stuff that you have taught us about soothing presence, emptying out, building that emotional language that is common, using the kids' language is the foundation. And it's a fabulous foundation. And I love that you've expressed that. And then the next step in that whole process, I think, unless you've got another step in there that you use, is really start to use the vocabulary that's going to fortify their expression. Is that what you would say is the next step?
The next step, well, there's two steps.
Oh, okay.
First, no,
Tell us
yes, you help
your
them to
next
develop
step.
their language,
Hmm.
like you said, that's very important. Just as important is how you handle your environment so you can be a soothing presence through this child's lifetime. We haven't gotten into that too much, but you mentioned something earlier that is important because sometimes their parents' own experience, which they never really resolved, their kids go through the same thing and it really fills them up. Like if you were bullied as a kid and your kid comes home and they were bullied, you want to go and thrash that little kid, and the child sees this and oh my gosh, I really upset my dad. I really upset my mom. So some of the work that I have to do is actually help parents understand, well, basically where they regress to when they get when we get really stressed, especially without any anticipation, like something like this, we regress back to previous ways of dealing with things.
Hmm.
And so,
Every human.
you know, this is human nature and making parents aware of that. They say, wait a minute, I need to take my own little time out here. And if I do, I can't just say, don't talk to me now, because the child will think it's a blow off and like my parents can't handle it. You
Mhm.
say, mom is, upset, but mom can handle her own feelings. I'll be back in 10 minutes. It's very important for the child to realize
I like that
that you can
phrase.
handle your own that you can handle your own feelings because the child's, especially young children, their emotions are so intense. They literally are afraid that their intensity of their emotions might drive you away.
I'm
Okay.
gonna I'm gonna repeat that because I think it's so worth repeating. Just gonna highlight it. The phrase for parents to take away is something like to say to your child, I am upset, but I can handle my own feelings. I'm gonna go away for 10 minutes and then I'll come back. I love that.
I've had experience, children who are out of control. You hold them because they're out of control, but you keep telling them, I'm okay. I'm right here. I'm okay. I'm right here for you. I'm okay. Because they need to know that. That's the soothing presence part of it. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid their emotions are going to actually drive you away. Again, these are just insights that you pick up after 40 years of psychological practice, I guess. But you pick these things up and share them with parents because parents they make all these silent assumptions about their children, and they're all well intended, but they don't help.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about here. But the things that can really help when the frequency and the intensity of their children's reactions begins to diminish, you're on the right. Because now they're not just using behavior to show them, they're using language.
Love it.
And that's it. I,
What?
I actually, I actually warned them one more thing.
Go ahead.
A temper tantrum, a child without language at 5 is a temper tantrum. Okay, when they're angry. At 17, a temper tantrum means jail time. Somewhere in between, they've got to learn to use their words. I'm sure you've run into adults who can't use their words.
Oh, yes.
It's a very important part of emotional maturation. Okay, I'm done. I think you're trying to
I think that
figure out
there's
how
a
to wind
wealth
this
of
up.
information that you could talk, and so we could talk for hours on this topic. It
Yeah,
truly
okay.
is the lifeblood of both you and I in our interest area in this life, what we
Yes,
do
I
for work. We
agree.
both have a passion for helping parents move forward with their kids.
Mhm.
And thank you, thank you, thank you for being here on the
Thanks for
language of
having
life.
me.
Absolutely. And thank you for exposing us to how you see it, because as a psychologist, you see it just a little different than I see it, right? Look through different lenses. And I think that when we can notice each other's lenses, we become better. I know that when I listen to
Agree.
people like you that have this different viewpoint, it helps me when I work with students and when I work with parents to remember, oh, we're missing a building block right between these two steps. And maybe when
Hmm.
you're listening
Okay.
to me talk, you're thinking, oh, yeah, linguistically, we need to add this in order for the kid to understand differently, in whatever realm,
Hmm.
however we're talking. Those are just made up examples. But it is super, super helpful, I think, for professionals as well as parents to hear from a multitude of people and yet make sure that those people that they listen to know their field, know their craft, and you are definitely one of them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You are too, obviously. We're on the same page here in a lot of ways.
Thank you. So, Dr. Marcus, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they do it?
Sure. The first thing they can do is they can visit my website, which is Parent RX, like parent prescription. It's all one word, PARENTRX.org. And on that, they'll get a description of me. You'll see my smiling face, but also other podcasts that I've done, which talks about this topic or other similar topics. Okay. And if they want to get in touch with me directly, they can go to my email, which is dsmarcus, PhD, DSMARCUS, PhD, at parentrx.org.
Perfect. I will have both of those links in the show notes for you, parents, so you don't have to try to remember. Just scroll down and click. If you were to leave one piece of information, because I've got parents that tell me, well, I was listening in the car when I'm driving, and then I get out of the car when I get home. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to say. If you were to distill down to one sentence, what one thing would you say to parents? Do this one today.
One phrase: shut up and listen.
All right. There you have it, moms
That's
and dads.
rude, but if you're listening, you're not talking, and if you're listening, you're learning.
Yeah.
And the second thing, make it safe for your children to tell you stuff.
Yeah.
And and that's a skill. We've talked a lot about it today. It takes practice, like any other skill, to get good at it. So there's two things. You asked me for one, but I gave you two.
Thank you again.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us today on The Language of Play. Remember to check the show notes for links and freebies and ways to get in contact with Dr. Marcus or me. And I wish you a wonderful holiday season. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.